Hi guys, welcome to another doozy with Dad. This one is going to go deep. All I can say is when you ask God for something, be careful what you ask for, because when he gives to you, he gives with abundance. This verse here has been bugging me and I couldn't let it go. I wanted to find out what it meant. And I don't know if I've even touched the surface yet, but I just wanted to share something which is going to blow your mind. So strap on and let's go for it. So for everyone will be tested with fire. If you've been watching the last few, you'll be knowing that it's talking about the various teachings about sin, getting sin out of your life, cutting parts of your body figuratively and possibly literally off to get into the kingdom of God. And then it says, for everyone will be tested with fire. And I'll even just go on for here. Salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? You must have the qualities of salt among yourselves and live at peace with one another. Wow. So, this asterisk here, I'm just going to jump straight into, here it is, salt with fire. Everyone will be tested with fire, and the Greek says salted with fire. Other manuscripts add, and every sacrifice will be salted with salt. So let's go to the Greek, the Blue Letter Bible. Everyone will be salted with fire, and every sacrifice will be salted with salt. And here's the next verse. Salt is good, but the salt has lost its saltiness, wherewith shall ye season it? So, I did a bit of digging. There's not much around, but I found one. Actually, yeah, I'll go first to this one. This is a web page. It's called thewordsofchrist.com, or Christ's Words. It's the Greek of all Jesus' words. So before I go there, I need to take you back to this one here. Show you how I got there. For with fire shall be salted everyone. So halizo is this word, shall be salted. To salt, season with salt, sprinkle with salt. And these are the two entries. So you are the salt of the earth, and then everyone should be salted. So if I go back to this other one, let's just read this for a second. Salted is halizo, which has two separate meanings. To salt, as in salting food, and to gather together, to collect pieces, and to meet together. The passive form of the salted is only typically applies to sheep, that is, putting out salt for them. Now I had to read into that. It means that gives them extra nutrients and helps them to eat properly and perform and function properly. So we won't go into that today, but that's what that means. So they're being salted. It is used in the Septuagint, so in the Old Testament now, in these four places, to translate the Hebrew malach, which is translated to be rubbed with salt, to be tempered, and to be dissipated. The word translated as made salty is another play on words, and as usual, one that only works in Greek. The Greek word means to salt, but is the passive future tense. That's important. We'll get to there. The passive form is only used for putting out salt for the sheep. However, this Greek verb is translated in the Hebrew to be rubbed with salt and to dissipate, which means to break up in little pieces and disperse. Important. The be rubbed with salt used in the Old Testament is primarily used to purify meat for sacrifice, but also its role in tempering blades. But the most common use of salting meat then and now was to preserve meat. So the sense is will be salted for preservation. So, without further ado, we're going to dive into these four passages, and I will do my best to not lose you. So Ezekiel, Leviticus, Isaiah, Exodus, Leviticus, Isaiah, and Ezekiel. So let's go back to here. I'll read the actual Bible sheet you're going to get too bored. Okay. 30 verse 10, was it, I think? So, we read this recently. Once a year, it's not the one. One sec. I forgot to get that. Just give me a second, sorry. 35. Okay. We'll go 34, 35. Then the Lord said to Moses, gather fragrant spices, resin drops, mollusk shell, and galbanum, and mix these fragrant spices with pure fragrances weighed out in equal amount. Using the usual techniques of the incense maker, blend the pieces together, sprinkle them with salt to produce a pure and holy incense. Grind some of the mixture into a very fine powder and put it in front of the Ark of the Covenant, where I'll meet with you in the tabernacle. So this is the incense. Now we go to Leviticus 2 verse 13. So, let's just read back a bit. You may add yeast and honey to an offering of the first crops of the harvest, but these must never be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Season all your grain offerings with salt, to remind you of God's eternal covenant. Never forget to add salt to your grain offerings. Now, when I was thinking about this, in chemistry, salt is a crystal, which means it has a lattice network in the molecular structure, which means it's always sort of slicing off in pieces, and it's always cuboid in shape, cubical. Now, why am I going there? Well, it makes it really rigid, and I'm wondering if on a molecular level, the small particles in this shape are actually going to help to grind up the other things and make them very fine. This is just the world according to Jamie, but I just wonder if that's because it's been in science, this is shown to be the case. I remember seeing the cubical shape of the molecular salt. It's always in that lattice network, it's always slicing off in that structure, so it's always in that shape. It's incredible. So that's just, I'm just wondering if that's why salt also helps to refine, and because we're being sprinkled with salt, it's refining when we're being ground up. So there's that one there. Now we go to Isaiah 51 verse 6. Okay, it's 51 verse 6. Where is it? Look to the skies above and gaze down the earth below. For the skies will disappear like smoke, and the earth will wear out like a piece of clothing. Now, where the heck is our salt here? This is where it gets interesting. If we go back to here, and now I will just go back to my Isaiah 51 verse 6. Remember that word malach? It's the transliteration across the languages. Malach, here we go. Vanish away, tear away, dissipate, to be dispersed, to be dissipated, to salt, to season. So this word is actually used in the tearing away and breaking up of things, as well as to salt and to season. I'll come back. I'll just go back to that last one. And it's our Ezekiel passage. This is a weird one, but stay with me. So, the parable of the unfaithful wife, referring to God's pending judgment for Israel's unfaithfulness. So it says, on the day you were born, no one cared about you. Your umbilical cord was not cut. You were never washed, rubbed with salt, or wrapped in cloth. So there is your rub with salt usage there. And I'm wondering if it basically means to use the salt once again to cleanse and to purify, but also that it'll get the blood off the baby's body to clean it and make it smooth. So it's got that cleansing and cleaning and purifying properties once again. So if we go back to this, where it's the same malach there in the Old Testament. So we're getting somewhere here. So if we were to come down here, actually I'll just go back that one. So we've got here, to tear away, figuratively, dissipate. Compare the Arabic, this symbol, to pull out, as in an eye or a tooth. Especially dozy, I think that's the word how you pronounce it, to tear off branch or to plant it. Figuratively, to be dispersed in fragments, dissipated. And then here, you'd probably pause and read that, but basically it's smoothness, softness, to glide away, to flee, to vanish. Salt. Where am I going with this? This is a crazy one, yeah? How do all these words apply to what Jesus has said in Mark? Let's go back. So, for everyone will be tested with fire. If we think about that in the context of all these things that we've just talked about, everyone's going to be literally dissipated, aren't we? We're all, like salt, going to be broken down and crushed and literally become nothing. And Jesus knew this, and I don't know if it's talking about anything specific here, but when Jesus says we will be tested with fire and sprinkled with salt, we're going to be crushed up. Now, what did Jesus just finish talking about? If your foot causes you to sin, if your hand causes you to sin, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. So we're talking about the same action in that malach, as in, rather than to salt, but to actually dissipate ourselves. We're breaking ourselves up now. And if we go back into the malach from the Leviticus and Exodus, it's to refine, and it's to help in the form of an offering. So we're actually purifying and breaking ourselves and grinding ourselves as a form of purification to make ourselves holy for the Lord. And I don't know if I'm just reading stuff that's not there, but why else would these words across 2 different languages now in 4 different spots in the Old Testament, and we're talking about rubbing babies with salt, we're talking about purifying food now and grinding things down for a seasoning and also for an offering. So that's just like wow. And we haven't even gone into this second meaning either. Every offering will be sprinkled with salt. So that's just something, a little piece, a snippet of what today has been for me. Just reading through these references to salt and its purpose in the Old Testament, the scripture verses that it's been used for. Because the other part of this is preservation. So our offerings, it said it will be used for preservation. So I just wonder if it means God preserves and like stores up and keeps our offerings almost like a sentimental thing. I don't know. Like, you know, when a parent has something given to them by their child, like, "Hi, Mum, I made you this. I've drawn in this picture." She goes, "Oh," and she keeps it. She stores it. She preserves it. She makes sure it's looked after. It's special to her. And so I just wonder if that part that's left out, where it says every sacrifice will be seasoned or salted with salt, I wonder if that's the preservation part, because our sacrifices, the things that we give up, the things that we cut off ourselves figuratively, the things in our lives, things in our lifestyle or practices, even if it's not an actual eye or hand, it might be these things that we do as a sacrifice to be holy for God. He preserves that. It's special to him. I don't know. This is all mysterious to me, but these are things I have found that actually make sense when you tie them together in the context of making ourselves holy, getting ourselves ready as an offering for God, cleaning ourselves. The properties of salt. Just do a study on the properties of salt, what it's used for. You'll be amazed. It's too big for here. So that's all I'll do for now. For that one. And heck, let's just keep going. Salt is good for seasoning, but if it loses its flavor, how do you make it salty again? So let's go back into the Greek. So let's go quickly through to Mark 9:49. Salt is good in verse 50. So let's go into this one. How will it made it salty again? Now, this is a different word. Artio, season. To arrange with respect to food, to season, to make savory. These are the only 3 times in the New Testament that you'll see this word. Salt is good, but if it's lost its salt, however you season it. Same again in Luke. And then Colossians 4:6. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how to answer every man. To arrange, to prepare with respect to food. So it's a totally different word. And it's talking about the next verse, of course. Salt is good. So that's another study for another time. But isn't it amazing how the two verses are talking about different things? Because even the salt part of 49 is left out of some scriptures. Look at the one on the right. It doesn't even have it. So just these things that, by doing a deep study, you get so much more context. And I just wanted to share this with you because it's important to get this stuff right sometimes. We don't want to look over and be ignorant and just not know. And, there's so much more into this. It's just too much for one go. I've probably gone only 20 minutes already. So, there you go. So that's where everyone will be tested with fire. Possibly comes from, and what it possibly relates to. Because the English renderings, salted with fire. We haven't even got to the fire today. It's incredible, isn't it? I won't go into that now, but the word fire is literally pyro, and it means just fire, literally just the fire. It doesn't talk about hellfire or anything, it's just straight out fire. But the salt was really starting to confound me, and I wanted to share. Anyway, I'll leave it here. Bless you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.